I'm Vuma. I'm a 22-year-old law graduate, a part of the PJP 2019 cohort. I just graduated from Curtin University studying law and international relations. And something interesting about me, I'm a big reader, which is super unusual considering the fact that I'm studying law and I read a lot. This year I'm trying to read 50 books, but being in Kalgoorlie, I managed to drop massively and I've had to take it down to 40, but I'm determined to reach that 50 before the end of the year.
Just as a side note, what sort of books are you reading?
Anything at all, to be honest with you. I especially love fiction books, just because I like reading about other people's stories. I still read young adult because they have very interesting lives and lives that I didn't have when I was a teenager. And I especially love things that are like medieval action adventure ones because it's about a world that's like something I've never explored myself. So, yeah.
I love it. So you've just come back from Kalgoorlie?
I have.
What were you doing?
I was there as a graduate, helping the law firm as a volunteer, helping the center as a volunteer. So I was pretty much doing anything that would make their jobs a bit easier. The majority of it was, let's say, disclosure review, where you go through clients' like video record of interviews right before they go to court for whatever reason it may be. But because I was also there as a graduate, I was pretty much getting trained to become a lawyer. So I got to shadow them when it came to interviewing clients in the prisons, in lockups. Right before they went to court, I got to be with them while they interviewed clients, and they gave me the chance to interview clients myself, especially when it got to asking them a bit more about their stories. So I was meeting with a lot of people with interesting lives. People who are a part of the prison system tend not to have the easiest of lives, so I got to know a side of life that I've never known myself, hearing the reasons why they did what they did, if anything. And I also got the chance to go on circuit trips with the lawyers, so that was a part of the shadowing. So two of the trips were to a community that's quite remote called Leonora, and another one was Esperance. And Esperance was really good because it was like a beach town, but you're also there to work. So I got the chance to see how the Esperance court works once a day when there's Aboriginal legal services and legal aid there. I got to interview some clients along the way. I also got the chance to be in court, watch how the magistrate comes in and gets to know the community she's working with because it's her consistent circuit. I got to see how the lawyers pack all their things and take them all the way down to Leonora and to Esperance. I got to go to the prisons as well, talk to clients who are already in custody. It was a lot of meeting with people, if anything, and it was a lot of hearing of stories and finding out how to be the best representative for them.
Yeah, that's really interesting. And so you were kind of saying that these aren't people that you'd normally interact with. So what was that like? Like, especially being in a prison with someone who's committed, some of them would have been major crimes. Yeah. What was that sort of experience like?
It was quite interesting. I think I got to kind of explore how I would interact with someone, especially when they were simply accused. Every part of me wanted to kind of already not be near somebody who was like they've committed a crime, but when they're accused especially, the court hasn't yet found them guilty. And I also had to maintain a professional kind of interaction with them where I wasn't necessarily their lawyer, but I was a part of the office that was representing them. And it was also quite eye-opening in terms of how I define justice and being a legal representative. You get the opportunity to be a provider of justice for people who you may not agree with how they got to where they got to, but you also have to understand that they also deserve that access to justice. They shouldn't go to the court system without someone there to represent them. So I think it actually opened up my understanding of what human rights means and serving communities. That does include people who have committed crimes, some of which I got the chance to see hadn't really committed the crime that they'd been accused of, but the majority, of course, were clients who had done what they'd done or who were eventually found guilty for what they were accused of. But it didn't mean that I treated them any differently, because at the end of the day, I'm a legal representative. That's how we're meant to be.
Yeah, that's really interesting. It kind of sounds as if you said you were understanding human rights, but also like as part of that, it's kind of like respect between individuals.
Pretty much.
Yeah, that's a really interesting idea.
Yeah.
What have you come back with that you didn't didn't think that you would?
Yeah, I've come back with a love for criminal law. I did the unit when I was in uni, and it was just another unit for me, and not more difficult. It was a little bit more interesting, I guess, than the commercial ones, but it was just another unit that I never thought I'd work in. But afterwards, I've been really looking out for any jobs in community justice, which I've always been interested in, but particularly also in criminal law, because I want the chance to be able to interact with people. And I think there's a huge challenge in knowing that as a legal representative, there's someone's freedom on the line. And I really like that challenge is something that, as unusual as to say, I do enjoy it. The chance to kind of look at the finite details of someone's case and see where you can work and where you can go with it. And I also came back with a huge appreciation for justice services, and the amount of clients that they deal with in just a day alone is just insane. And also the way just the size of Western Australia also really shocked me, because the office that I was with go as far as Warburton and Wirrakuna, some of which are as close to the border of Northern Territory. So imagine you're an office that's based in Kalgoorlie, you help clients who live in Perth, but then you also help clients that live all the way close to Northern Territory. That's a massive space to cover. And also, like, based on where you live in Perth, your understanding of city or metropolitan way of life is different. So you become somebody who has to learn how to understand people who don't live in the city, and that would be completely different to people who do live in the city, but you still have to help them to the best of your ability.
That's so fascinating. So when now that you're back, what do you think is the primary difference between, regional and metropolitan practice?
I feel like regional practice involves a lot more movement. The more organized trips, like the circuits, where you pack your things and go to a regional town. Some of them got the chance. Some of the circuits involve getting on a plane, so that's a massive movement that you consistently have to do. But then it was also the way in which the lawyers would search some for their more unpredictable clients, just unpredictable in terms of whether or not they show up to court, because they're quite nomadic. They actually get in a car and drive throughout Kalgoorlie and just kind of see if they can look for them. That was something that I really loved, because I love moving. It keeps my brain working, and I like the chance of, like, we'd get up, we'd go to court, we'd get up, we'd go to the prisons, we'd get up, we'd go look for a client. It wasn't an everyday thing to go looking for clients in cars, but every time they said, someone's got a matter tomorrow, we don't know if he's coming, do you want to come to this community to go look for him? I'd always be like, yes, I'd love to, because it also got the chance for you to kind of just interact with people. Whenever you go to people's house and you ask, have you seen so-and-so? You just get the chance to have a conversation with them, where you're not just talking to them like you're a lawyer. You're just talking to them as somebody who's just looking for someone, and you're hoping that they'll help. So I like the movement that they do in more regional towns. It keeps your blood flowing, it keeps your work interesting, and it's very particular of being in a small town. The fact that you can actually drive around and find what you're looking for. You couldn't do that in Perth.
And there's also something, even though you're dealing with people who are not having the best time, they're going through the justice system, which no one wants to be doing. But to go and meet them in their community, to go to their house, there's something there's something quite emotional about that sort of thing. So that must have been a really at times that could have been a really testing experience. Yeah,
it was. I think it was really difficult talking to clients when you knew that they knew and you knew that what they did was wrong, and what they did is going to lead to a sentence. And as you get to know people's stories, you find out who has kids and who has partners. And it's just really, it does get a bit emotional knowing that they may spend a few months or up to a few years away from young children. That stuff really does make me quite emotional, and it does get to me. But I did enjoy the moments where I got to see clients who at least regretted what they'd done. I like to hope that it's a moment for them to do better for themselves and not find themselves in the situation again. If anything, that's all you can do as a lawyer, because you're not really there as someone who's kind of helping them as a counselor or anything like that. So I hope just the moment of, like, you get the chance to really talk to them about their crime, because you're getting to know their story. And in doing that, you just get the chance to have a conversation with them, find out why they did what they did, rather than just assuming the worst about them and going from there, Yeah.
So what was your standout experience when you were in the Kalgoorlie office?
Firstly, it would be the circuits, the chance to get to travel to towns that I've never thought about or heard of. One of them being Leonora. Like, I've never heard of Leonora before, but it's somebody's home, it's somebody's community, it's somebody's space. It was really good to travel to somewhere that remote and see that people make a life and a living for themselves, and see how they do that, and to just come through and just to help in any way that I could. But I think a massive highlight was seeing how passionate each of the lawyers were about what they do. It takes a lot of effort to be willing to drive around to look for your clients, to visit them in prisons and hear their stories. And I got to see lawyers who cared about whether or not their clients knew when their jail sentences were ending, and who wanted to advocate for them to at least get the chance to see an end to their jail sentence and not die in prison. I just like that each of the lawyers, like, they cared massively about their homeless clients too. They spoke about their client and the link between, being an Aboriginal person, and you're a higher chance of being more on the homeless side than any other group of people living in Kalgoorlie. And I thought that the ability to just connect all of these issues that are happening in one community to what they do was a great effort, and it was just an incredible part of being a legal advocate, because if anyone's going to be heard, it's a lawyer. And they were also passionate about what they did. They cared about their clients. Before every interview, I'd hear them say things like, "What's your story? You tell me your story," which I think helped a client breathe a little bit easier, because they realized that they weren't just another person who was guilty on site because they were a Black person within the criminal justice system. And I just love people who are passionate about what they do. And when you're working with people who may have a bit of apprehension about the legal system, about police officers, it makes a massive difference to look them in the eye and still see dignity in them, rather than try to kind of avoid them and just write them off and just say you might as well plead guilty because this looks bad. No, to hear their story and then tell them why pleading guilty would be the best outcome. At least they know that they were heard before they got to the bad side of things. To go to, you know, like we were saying before, to respect their human rights and dignity, pretty much,
rather than just go procedural.
That's it, pretty much.
So you're a PJP grad.
Yes.
How's that going?
It's good.
What's your experience been like? Not that this needs to be like it's great, but like, you know, how's it going? PJP
is actually as good as I had hoped it would be. I chose it because I'm passionate about about community justice. I'm passionate about social justice, and I also, as much as I like to tell people that I want to be a human rights lawyer, I also love to get to know the community that I'm working with, rather than jetting straight off to making massive decisions and not knowing who they're going to impact. So I think PJP has helped me connect with the community side of community justice. I wouldn't have been able to go to Kalgoorlie if it wasn't for them. It wasn't a cheap thing to do, but their financial support and also the graduates who kind of encouraged me when I was going to Kalgoorlie was also great. A lot of people were telling me things like they wanted to hear about my experience to know if they should go afterwards. That made me feel really supported by the people who I was studying with, and also hearing past graduates talk about their time in Kalgoorlie, that made me know that going there was a great idea to begin with. So it's been as great as I would have hoped it would have been, and I don't regret choosing it to do my graduate experience with, because this is all to become a lawyer in the long run, and to regret it would have been a really massive thing, because it would have been a year either wasted or well spent. So far it feels like a year well spent, because I'm also looking forward to my next placement at the humanitarian group, and that's going to be a massively different community to work with. But these are placements that as much, like, even though it is just volunteering, they're not easy placements to come across. They cost a lot of money, or they don't really take graduates that often. But to be able to have Piddington say, "We trust this graduate, take her on," is actually been a great support to have thus far. That is awesome. And so I just kind of want to finish with, what advice do you have for, you know, young lawyers, graduate lawyers, and those finishing up their study that are in similar positions to you? What advice do you have? I would say know what you're passionate about, and hold dear to that. If it's commercial law, if it's social justice, hold that into your heart, because that will be what you put down in any applications that you write. What I found myself to be successful in is in the applications that have been very fluid and very easy to write, and the ones where I get to tell them that this is what I like doing and I want to help you in this way. And I also say don't stress too hard about the decisions that you have to make in the coming months, because it will all fall into place so long as you continue to work as hard as you're probably already working. So know that there is a lot of people who want to see you become a lawyer. You're not studying this for nothing, so just continue going, because this field does need more people who are passionate and who are excited to be lawyers in the future.